had some good years, I've had some bad years, but I'm still here, and it got me thinking, what are some things I'd do differently if I started my laser business over today? Quick backstory for context, I've been running a full-time laser business now for the past 8 years. Back in the summer of 2015, I did the thing everyone tells you not to do and quit my 9-to-5 job before I had made any money, or even owned my own laser. I started off by renting laser time at a local makerspace, cutting orders, and bringing them back to my apartment to pack and ship everything out. After a couple years of that, I had enough money to rent a 1,000-square-foot workshop in a beautiful old building in Philadelphia. Shortly after I moved into that workshop, I finally bought my own CO2 laser and really hit my stride. But at the end of 2020, my wife and I decided to move out of the area, which meant giving up my workshop and relocating to a much more cozy garage space that you see here. During that span of time, I've had some good years, I've had some bad years, but I'm still here, and it got me thinking, what are some things I'd do differently if I started my laser business over today? The first thing I would do outside of choosing a name and all that stuff is decide how I want to structure my laser business, which would dictate how I find work and make money. Not thinking this part through was actually a big mistake I made when I started my current business. Back in 2015, when I was gearing up to get started, I only envisioned myself as a 100% e-commerce business using both Etsy and Shopify to sell my products. This made the most sense to me because I was leaving a full-time e-commerce position, and it's the style of business I was most familiar with. However, something happened that I didn't expect. As I started making sales and posting content to social media, having day-to-day interactions with other people asking what I did for work, well, people started reaching out to me for laser work. And each time, it caught me off guard. I had the pricing down for my retail products, but I had no idea where to start when quoting for custom work. So you can probably guess what happened next. I started accepting these jobs and charging way less than I should have because I didn't have any kind of framework or pricing guidelines in place to handle custom work. For example, last month, I had a museum based all the way across the country in Arizona reach out to me to cut some tabletop stands for them. Definitely not something I expected to be asked to do because I don't heavily market my custom services anymore. If that would have happened 4 to 5 years ago, I'm certain I would have lost money on that job because I was essentially just making up numbers. If I were starting over today, I would probably plan for 50% of my time dedicated to custom jobs and 50% of my time dedicated to retail products. Those percentages can obviously change based on many factors, but that's my starting point. On day one, I would set up a framework of how I'm going to handle the custom jobs. The pricing, the guidelines, the types of projects I'm willing and capable of doing with the lasers that I own, etc., etc. After that, I would start focusing on my retail pricing strategy. For the most part, retail products are pretty predictable. You know how long it takes to cut and pack. You know what the Etsy fees are. You know what the material cost is. It's the custom jobs where you don't know exactly what you're in for, where you have the biggest chance for costly errors. The next thing I would do is choose the right social media platforms to engage on. Look, if you're starting a home-based laser business or side hustle or whatever in this day and age, having a social media presence is required. If you build it, they will come doesn't exist in this industry. However, I think there's a lot of bad advice around social media use for small businesses, and I fell into some of that bad advice earlier in my journey. To be fair to myself, the social media landscape was much different back in 2015 than it is now. A big piece of advice that was floating around was that you needed to do something on every social platform that you come across. And now I think that's absolute BS. I was mainly posting on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, but I got sucked into that mindset and started accounts on every fly-by-night social platform that ended up shutting down 6 months later because no one used it. You end up wasting a ton of time generating content that in turn does nothing to drive sales or build your brand. So what I would do now is just focus on the social platforms where my potential customers already exist, and that's it. For me, first, I would create a Facebook page for my new laser business, because a lot of people use Facebook both personally and professionally. The average age demographic of Facebook users is creeping up higher every year, and if you combine every category 25 years older and higher, that's 75% of the entire user base of Facebook. People that are 25 years old plus often have more money to spend. They are marketing managers at local businesses. They are buying agents for retail stores. I hope you can see where I'm going with this. These are the types of potential customers that I would want to see my Facebook posts and reach out if they need any laser work done, either through organic reach or paid ads. The second platform I would probably start posting on is Instagram, Instagram is great for just casually documenting your work and giving a more behind-the-scenes look at your business. This is excellent for brand building. Outside of those two platforms, I would really have to sit down and weigh the benefits. YouTube might be worth it for some kind of laser businesses, but requires a lot of work. I'm not sold on TikTok at all. I think they inflate their numbers, and from what I've read, conversion rates are pretty poor, also not my target demographic most likely. I've actually been intrigued by LinkedIn as a social platform recently. I think a lot of people overlook it, especially if you want to do a lot of business-to-business laser work. Getting good contracts from big businesses or government can change your small laser business overnight if you want to go that route. But as a baseline, a Facebook business page and an Instagram account are the bare minimum. I can adequately cover both local and worldwide audiences, depending on whether I want to market my custom job services or retail products. The next thing I would do, I don't see a lot of people touch on when talking about their laser business, and that is prioritize asset collection. A couple years ago, I did a wood sign engraving for a photographer that had a studio a couple doors down from my workshop. He already had the logo of his name done in the font that he wanted, so that was great, but he also wanted a small camera graphic placed at the bottom of the sign. However, he didn't have a file or a reference for the graphic. I had two options here. One, tell him that he needs to go find the specific graphic that he wants, incorporate it into the art file, and send it back to me. Or option number two, and the option that I chose, was to tell him I'd make one for him. I usually don't suggest doing this unless you're sure it's not going to be a lot of work, but then again, at the time, I was sure it wasn't going to be a lot of work. First, I tried creating something from scratch in Illustrator, but I'm really not that great of a digital artist. After wasting time doing that, I decided to try vector tracing a photo of a camera to see how that worked. The end results just didn't look good. It didn't match the aesthetic of the logo. Finally, I decided to do what I should have done in the first place and just buy a ready-made asset. I went to Creative Market and bookmarked a couple different styles and asked which one he wanted. I added it to the art file, sent it to him for proofing, and got to work from there. Digital assets are things like fonts, graphics, border designs, templates, anything you can potentially use in either your client work or your retail products. And by collecting, I don't mean go out and buy them right away. I'm talking about organizing the links in a way that you can easily refer back to them if you need something. You can do that with a spreadsheet or Pinterest or just bookmarking in your browser. For example, on Creative Market, I use their collections feature to bookmark all the fonts and graphics that I like based on category. If I'm doing a wedding sign and I need a font, I go to my wedding fonts collection and pick one. If I have an idea for a product that needs a really cool medieval letter stamp, I have a collection ready to look at. And for me, asset collection goes beyond just fonts and graphics. I'm a one-person business and can't do everything. So I keep a profile on Fiverr with a list of freelancers that do things like vectorizing badly pixelated logos, tasks that would take me a long time to do because I'm not particularly good at it. If I'm buying a font to use in a customer's project, I charge them a percentage of the price of the font, and now I can use that font in other jobs in the same category. If I'm using a freelancer to vectorize a logo, I charge the customer the cost of the freelance work. This is a basic subcontractor style arrangement. The contractor renovating your house probably does the same thing. I want to avoid getting bogged down in searching for assets and doing time-consuming tasks that don't add extra money in my pocket at the end of the day. If I can outsource it for a reasonable cost, I will do it in a heartbeat. The next thing I would do would be a bit of an ongoing process, and that's to invest some time in developing niche products. So what does that mean? Well, I have a perfect example here to show you because this niche product right here is basically how I was able to sustain my business in the early days. This product is what I named the corner card, and it's just a small 1/8 inch thick piece of clear acrylic with different corner radiuses and some engraving on the top. And I've cut and sold thousands of these things over the years. This was one of the first successful products I ever had, and I'm pretty sure accounted for nearly all of my Etsy sales in the very beginning. At the time, I was really big into leather working, and a common pain point I kept coming across was it was difficult to trace nice clean corners on your leather for cutouts. And what better use for a laser than cutting out a precise and durable tool to help people get the job done and cost under $10. So if I was starting all over in 2023, I would invest a good portion of my time trying to find new niche products. Look, this process isn't easy and definitely not a guarantee of success, otherwise everyone would do it. I launched a few other niche products after the corner card that basically fizzled out to nothing. But if you can tap into a niche with a product that people like, it can transform your business overnight. That's why I love making those Etsy videos, because I come across products that people are making that I had no idea even existed. There's more to the laser business than just tumblers, coasters, and wood ornaments. You don't have to do those things if you don't want to. So take inventory of your own activities and interests and try to develop a product that you can sell to others in that niche. Also, spend some time scanning through marketplaces like Etsy and Amazon Handmade to see what's selling. What catches your eye? Do you see something interesting that you could put a spin on and market to a new demographic? I'll give you an example of how I try to think about that process. Engraving cutting boards with cute sayings is a pretty popular product, right? Well, how could I take that popular idea and market to a different customer? Well, do you speak Spanish or Polish or Hebrew? Take the concept and translate to different languages to reach customers that don't speak English or would prefer one in their native language. Things like that. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Alright, so in conclusion, let's tie all those points together and give you a better idea of what my game plan would be. First, I would make sure to have separate paths and policies set up for my custom client work and my eventual retail products. From there, I would make sure to join any social media space where my potential customers hang out and start engaging by creating content and responding to content they're creating as well. If it's a local audience, like for example a town Facebook group or something, I would focus my efforts on the custom job side of things. Posting photos and videos of customized slate coasters, cutting boards, etc. Those are the kind of jobs I would rather not have to compete against every Etsy seller in the world to get. If it's a wider audience like Instagram, I'd focus my efforts more on my niche retail products that you can buy on my Etsy shop or on my website that I would ship worldwide. All while I'm doing this, I'm making sure to organize my assets, both digital and freelance. Customer needs a cool graphic of a cartoon bear for their engraving, I can get that. Customer needs a crappy scanned roster logo vectorized, I have a guy that can do that for me in 3 hours. Let's generate the invoice in the meantime. During this time, I'm also researching and developing some niche products that I can hopefully sell to a worldwide market with Etsy and my website. This is going to be a hit or miss, but when you hit, it makes all the time invested worth it. If my retail products aren't driving any sales, I shift the percentage of time to dedicate a little bit more to the client work side. If I have a hit niche product that's selling like crazy, I shift the percentage of time back to retail and cool off on the client work for the time being. All businesses, especially retail and service business, ebb and flow depending on the time of the year, the weather, interest rates, whatever's going on in the world, etc., etc. In my opinion, it's good to stay agile and adaptable so you can take advantage of opportunities as they come. Alright, well, I could write an entire book with all the ideas I have about running a laser business, so if you're interested in a potential part 2 of this video, please hit the like button or leave a comment, which helps give me feedback that you guys would be interested. I'm also seriously considering a new series where I actually start a laser business from scratch with a new name and show you my strategy and all my sales results. Hit the subscribe button if you might be interested in seeing something like that. Thanks for watching.